Hey guys. Oh, I am on my way to school and oh, that's bright. My sunglasses are in my bag. I might have to stop and get those out. But, it was nice because the streets are melting a little bit. Super icy this morning and yesterday morning was a blizzard, and this morning was an absolute ice rink because the snow we got was just absolutely the worst for the first one of the season. Thankfully the main roads are pretty clear. So we get my little TED talk from the ideas I've been having. Okay, so dealing with adverse driving conditions requires a very, very different set of skills, and these skills have to be learned. They have to be taught and they have to be learned. Now, either your parents taught you, especially if you grew up in an area that gets inclement weather and icy conditions, etc. Or you ended up learning on your own, or you ended up learning from somebody else. Why are we squeaking? Oh my goodness. Squeakity squeak. So, requires a different set of skills, particular set of skills. Now, in life, you can probably kind of get by with really basic kind of skills, but sometimes what we learn is not the healthiest way of going about things. So what I've found is that there's basically 4 categories of skills in life. Oh, yeah, tape. It's for work, so I don't destroy my fingers. Electrical tape, it has all sorts of uses. So these 4 skills they're all related, and they can all go healthy or unhealthy, depending on if you have them, what you have, how you use it. So there's emotional regulation, right? Some of us look to others to regulate our emotions. We have to have certain behaviors or actions from others in our lives for us to be regulated, for us to be, happy and okay. They have to do what I think they should do, otherwise I'm not okay. Otherwise, they're disrespecting me, they're disobeying me, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so, right, if you're depending on the behavior or the actions of others for your own emotional regulation, that's not healthy, right? But if you are able to self-regulate, no matter what the people around you are doing, yeah, you may have an emotional reaction to it, but you don't have to act on it. You don't feel the compulsion to have to act on it. And you're going to be okay regardless of what these people do. You'll recognize and acknowledge your emotion. You'll let yourself feel it, but you're not necessarily going to act on it. You don't have to. So with that, right, that is connected to communication. So how do we communicate? Do we communicate in healthy or unhealthy ways? Do we communicate? A lot of us expect somebody else to be a mind reader, and a lot of times that is a learned behavior from parents, maybe teachers, maybe, other meaningful people in our lives. As we were growing up, we didn't learn the skills to communicate our needs properly or discover our needs properly, whatever. So, you've got emotional regulation, you've got communication, you've also got empathy. empathy without boundaries is not healthy. Okay. Empathy is also a learned skill. Believe it or not. The lack of empathy is very scary. Very, very, very scary. And you have to have a balance with that. Because empathy without boundaries you will destroy yourself, more or less. And the last one that ties all of it together is problem solving. So if you don't have problem solving skills, if you don't have a foundation for that, you're not going to be able to cope with life very well. You're not going to be able to get through life very well. Any of these four, if you don't have them, or if they're not healthy, you're going to struggle. It's going to be hard. You may struggle with your relationships. You may struggle with work ethic, relationships in the workplace. There's a lot that goes into that. If you can't communicate effectively, that's going to be hard. It's going to make life difficult, especially because, a lot of times we end up needing other people. That's just how it is. And or we have something that we want to express and we don't know how to do it. We just don't have the communication skills. It's that they're all connected. And if it's counter to what you grew up with, it can be really difficult to learn those. But I tell you what, I have been in therapy for a long time, quite a few years, and I'm not afraid to say that. Do you know why? Because the therapists that I've had are not there to fix me. They never have been. They're not there because you're sick. They're not there because there's something wrong with you. Going to therapy does not mean there's something wrong with you. It means that you're learning skills. Okay? The dynamic that I have with my therapist right now is it's very open, and he's not afraid to challenge me on beliefs that I hold, or things that I think are true, but really aren't. We go back and forth, and he's human too. So, and it's strictly professional. It's good. There are boundaries. It's great. That makes it safe. So with that, what he's gone to school for is like learning how to teach other people skills. Okay. So when you're, say when you're a dog trainer, right? Yeah, you train the dog, but really more than that, you train the human how to communicate with their dog and what realistic expectations are for their dog, etc., etc., etc. You teach them problem solving with their dog to understand how their dog's brain works, etc. So therapy is kind of the same thing, but it teaches you that stuff with yourself and with other people. So, the skills of emotional regulation, a lot of us don't grow up with healthy skills for that. We don't have a healthy perspective on it. It's that's where a lot of manipulation comes from, right? Manipulation can become a lot of our problem solving skills, is trying to manipulate other people, and it may not necessarily be malicious or intentional. That's the only way that we know. And some of my behaviors in the past were moderately that way. And that's the thing, is I've had to recognize that, the skills that I had were not great. I was doing the best I could with what I had. I wasn't intending anything maliciously. I wasn't trying to use or abuse anybody. I was trying to get my needs met in the only way I knew how. But those skills were not healthy. So I needed to learn how to do it differently. I needed to learn different ways of relating to myself and others. So with that, I have kind of an overdeveloped sense of empathy, which was exploited by my abusers. And the problem with that is that I didn't have boundaries. Okay? So overdeveloped empathy, no boundaries, it's kind of a recipe for disaster. Light. I might though. I might. Oh, I did, yay. Okay. So that's where, I had to learn boundaries in that empathy area. I had to 100% learn boundaries. And then I had to learn how to exercise boundaries, not only with others, but also with myself. My problem solving, I didn't have any problem solving skills. I wasn't raised with them. My mom never walked through problems with me in order to help me learn how to figure out, okay, what's the problem and what's the solution. When I was on my own after my mom died, I didn't even know that power bills were a thing. I didn't know you had to pay somebody to keep the lights on. So if that gives you any idea about my what I had to learn, obviously I figured that out right quick and in a hurry, but in terms of practical skills, I never learned to balance the checkbook. I never learned how to handle money. I never learned any of that. Granted, when I was with my ex-husband, I helped him pay off like $30,000 of his debt, but that to me was just common sense. I didn't have any training on that, but I looked at it and I understood how it worked. So, I don't like this area. The way this merges right here. Anyway, so problem solving skills. I've had to learn problem solving skills. And what problem solving skills I did have got undermined by the abuser. So, again, had to relearn those. There's nothing wrong with you for that. Like, you're not broken if you have to learn this stuff. We all have to learn it at one point. It's like if you learned to play an instrument when you were younger and then you dropped it for like 10-20 years and then you have to go back and relearn it, there's nothing wrong with you for having to relearn it. That's just what happens. Or if you never learned an instrument as a kid and then you've got to learn it as an adult, there's nothing wrong with you for having to learn it. You can't just pick something up and expect to be good at it. Same thing with these skills, the emotional regulation, the empathy, the problem solving, and the communication. If you didn't have a good foundation, you didn't learn this stuff as a kid and growing up in the home, you've got to learn it. You got to learn it somehow. Otherwise, you're gonna struggle with having healthy relationships, having healthy communication, interaction with others, healthy relationship with yourself. You're just gonna have a hard time. Life is so much, I'm not gonna say necessarily easier, because stuff still happens. But when you have the tools to deal with it, it's a total game changer. And it's really all these things are. They're just tools in your toolbox. Now, if you use a sledgehammer for something that requires a pry bar, you're not going to get very far. You know, you're probably going to mangle whatever you're working with. Just saying. It helps to have the right tool for the job. And those four things. Yes, I held up. Those 4 things are so important. They're so important. I cannot tell you how important they are. Yay, I got a spot right here in the walkway. Cannot tell you how important they are. So, you know, if there are things in your life that just aren't working, if you're struggling with your mental health, if you're struggling in your relationships, if you're struggling to make decisions, if you're struggling to make good decisions, if you're having trouble connecting with yourself or with others, problem solving, you know, all of it, find a good therapist. I'm serious. Do research, do homework on emotional development and emotional intelligence. Do homework on that. It'll make a big difference. You know, make sure if you do find a therapist, if you do go to that therapist, make sure that they're a good fit for you. Because a good therapist is not going to let you get away with everything. They're not just going to prop you up and make you feel better. They are going to challenge you. You know, they are going to give you work to do. And it's going to be uncomfortable and it's probably going to suck and you might cry. But that's part of the process. And it's okay to do that. I promise. I can't tell you the number of times I have cried in my therapist's office. But I tell you what, I have come out with the skills that I need. I'm still learning, but you know what? I am so much healthier. I am so much happier. I'm so much more confident because of these skills that I'm learning. I'm not like constantly second guessing myself. I'm not like basing my value on what other people think of me or if they approve of me, or just, you know, anything to do with other people. I am super, super proud of the progress that I've made, because I'm going to tell you something. I used to be just anxiety riddled. I used to be scared of my own shadow because of all the abuse and all the loss and all the trauma that I've been through. But the really cool thing is that through all of the work that I've done, I have stuck with my therapy, and I have I've ticked off my therapist. I have I've done, you know, I've really like been through it. This whole healing and learning thing is not just a straight line. This thing goes but you have a general upward motion. And there have been times I've looked at myself and I said, I don't see the progress. I don't see it. But where I am now is because I didn't give up. I did not give up. I kept fighting. I kept learning. I kept confronting this stuff that was coming up and that was blocking me, and that, was really getting in the way of me being able to heal and learn and move forward. And now I'm at a point in my life where I'm really excited about the possibility of being able to help other people do the same thing, because I've reached this point of stability where there's not much, really, there's not much that's going to throw me. I have been through just about anything, that you can name. Just about. And, even recently I've had some things happen that a couple of years ago would have absolutely devastated me. I would not have been able to function. I would have been so emotionally overwhelmed and not able to process, and not, I wouldn't have the proper perspective. I wouldn't have I wouldn't have the tools to be able to handle this in a healthy way. And, I'm not compartmentalizing. I'm not pushing it away. I'm not denying it. I am dealing with it. And I'm dealing with it in a way that's healthy. I'm not letting it stop me. Oh, heck no. I'm not letting it stop me. If anything, it gives me a little bit of vinegar to keep me going. But seriously, find a good therapist. If you have stuff to work on, if you don't feel like at home in your own skin, if you struggle with your self-esteem, if you struggle with motivation, if you struggle, whatever, find a good therapist. And if you can't afford a good therapist, as much as you can, do your homework. Look into healthy coping skills. Look into problem solving skills. Look into communication skills. Maybe invest in seeing if you can take an interpersonal communications class at your local community college. You might learn something. Emotional regulation. Great skills. Done wonders, I promise. All right, guys, I gotta go. I gotta get into class. Have a great one.